What's up, everyone? It's Marco Hanna from PhoneDog.com, and this sucker right here is the OnePlus One, or so-called the flagship killer of 2014. This phone is packed to the gills in terms of specs, all the same specs you may find in a 2014 flagship that costs twice as much as the OnePlus One. So enough of me talking about this phone. You guys have been waiting for the full review of the OnePlus One here at PhoneDog.com, and I'm ready to deliver the full review of the OnePlus One right here at PhoneDog.com. The OnePlus One is a special device to a lot of people. On one side, it's the flagship killer that costs half as much as the rest, yet delivers the exact hardware and arguably a better software experience, but on the other side, it's the unicorn phone that the general public has no access to with OnePlus's ridiculous invite system. So no matter how you look at the OnePlus One, it's an extremely desirable device. But before we look at design, specs, and all the rest, let's talk about the phone call quality, as we all, including myself, tend to forget from time to time. Keep in mind, this device is not carrier optimized for any of the US carriers. Call quality has been very good. Keep in mind, this only works with GSM networks. Here in the States, we have AT&T, T-Mobile, and a few others. The call quality has been crystal clear, perhaps a little small noise coming from the earpiece itself, if that could be from a bad signal. But then let's talk about the design and the specs. The OnePlus One is essentially a breakoff from the Oppo Find 7 and 7a, almost the same size and very close on the design. There are slight changes like the chrome bezel running around the device and the dual chin protecting the display from shattering, but side by side these look awfully close. Also, the OnePlus One comes with an interesting texture. This 64GB sandstone black model has a velvet or really soft sandpaper texture around the device. It really doesn't feel like anything I've felt before on a smartphone. But that's not to say I don't like the way this phone looks. I actually like the odd appeal of this texture, and it makes a very pretty device. Its simplistic look really appeals to me, with a very simple OnePlus logo and small text on the bottom half of this device. And trust me, people have asked me what this phone is because it looks so good and not because it's a monstrous 5.5-inch phablet. Now it's onto the display, spanning 5.5 inches and boasting a 1080p resolution that dials in its PPI right over 400 at 401 pixels per inch. And it's one of the best looking 1080p panels I've seen in a while. The colors are spot on, the text looks like it's floating above the display, and the clarity is top notch. Now next we're going to be talking about the hardware and the specs. While this phone may only cost you $299 and $349 depending on storage, it packs the same exact specs you'd find in a $700 flagship. Processor-wise, you'll find a Snapdragon 2.5GHz quad-core 801 chip, the same chip found in the Galaxy S5. You'll also find 3GB of RAM, that's one more than the S5 and the HTC One M8, and the 16GB model of the LG G3. And you'll also find the same Adreno 330 GPU chip inside all the other flagships. Next, let's dive into the software, which is where the OnePlus One really differs from the pack. While it may run Android 4.4.2 KitKat, this is preloaded with CyanogenMod 11S, which you may remember from the Oppo N1 is a open source skin built to run on top of Android. The software really gives you a controlling feeling over your whole software. You can change almost everything from where you want your buttons, the order of them, settings, options, and the whole 9 yards. But then we can get to the user interface itself. Originally, this phone came with a preloaded CyanogenMod theme, but the lovely open marketplace allowed me to purchase an Android L theme to run perfectly on top of CyanogenMod. But the software itself is still Android. It acts like it looks like it, and runs like it. And as always, the performance is going to be next. Through the software, it absolutely flies. No lags, no hiccups. This works like a well-oiled machine. And it mainly comes from its collaboration from Cyanogen and OnePlus, sort of making this phone the flagship CyanogenMod phone you could buy, plus the hardware does help a lot. And the fact that this phone comes with CyanogenMod pre-installed also backs up the fact of support. They've even announced that Android L will be available for the OnePlus One within the first 90 days of public launch to the OnePlus One. Now, multitasking, browsing on Chrome, and running applications and games are all simple tasks for the OnePlus One. Nothing really slows down this phone at all. It really has to be one of the best Android experiences for me, and I don't know if it's the price that's affecting me or not, but it's one fantastic device. Now, I do want to switch on to the camera of the OnePlus One. Inside, it's a 13 megapixel Sony Sony Exmor-R sensor that delivers really great photos and good UHD and DCI 4K video. The photos out of this thing are really nice and pleasing to look at. I wouldn't say it's better than the Samsung Galaxy S5 in terms of image quality, but it is better than the LG G3 and obviously much better than the HTC One M8. The only downfall on the OnePlus One is the lack of OIS that the LG G3 has. Colors are pretty accurate. Exposure could be a little tricky at times, but for the most part, it's pretty good. Autofocus is a bit slow in photo mode. It's a lot slower in video mode, but that's probably down to the software, and hopefully with some software updates, we could see that fixed. Now, video mode on the OnePlus One is going to be a bit strange, and by that I mean really cool. For starters, you do have a few flavors of video. You have a 720p slow motion mode at 120 frames per second, 1080p at 30p and 60p, and then you get into the 4K. You can shoot UHD video at 30 frames per second, but you can bump it up to a DCI standard cinema 4K at 4096 by 2160 at both 24 frames per second and 30 frames per second. Now, it's all great that we have it here, but when are you really going to shoot DCI standard video on your smartphone? Not many times, but it's handy. Now, last but not least is battery life. Inside, you'll find a 3100 mAh battery under an impossibly removable back cover. Screen on time has been extended into 6 to almost 7 hour ranges of moderate usage, with a complete battery lifespan of over 17 hours of moderate usage. This could be easily a 2-day phone if you are a light to moderate user. But seriously, no complaints about the battery life whatsoever. So what's the final verdict here? This is one of the best Android smartphones, period. That's if you could buy it. It's a real shame to see this type of product extremely limited by its own marketing, or it could be just a real clever way to control production of this phone, because obviously they're not making so much money off each phone. It's a special device in the market, and I love the fact that this thing is in the market, and I think everyone should have the opportunity to buy this phone that doesn't cost so much money. And if you do have a chance to buy this phone, I would say buy it. Buy it immediately and never second guess your purchase. It makes phones like the S5, the M8, and the G3 look like absolute overpriced pieces of tech, while this modest $300 smartphone does everything they do for half the price. So thanks for tuning in my full review of the OnePlus One. If you have any questions about the OnePlus One, make sure to leave them in the comments below and I'll respond to most of them, or send them directly to my Twitter account to @PhoneDog_Marco. And as always, my name is Marco Hanna from PhoneDog.com, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.